Welcome back to another episode of How It Works. My name is Ken Baker from GreenPro Solutions, and today we're going to talk about engines. On this particular unit, we have two engines, and what we're going to do is break each of these down of how they work and how to understand what they do in your system. And we're going to talk about a little bit of maintenance on these. So what I'm going to do is break them down. Here we have a Yanmar, which is a diesel engine, and we have a Vanguard engine, which is a gasoline engine. Now the Yanmar engine here is, of course, a bigger engine. It's 23 horsepower. It's diesel, which is tapped into the truck's engine, and so you don't have an external remote gas tank. This here is also a water-cooled system, which keeps the core temperature in the block very much cooler than your conventional gas engine. Some of the other features on here that you may be familiar with, and that is torque. Torque is very, very important. And how that applies to you in the field is that you can run this at a lower RPM and still achieve the same height and volume. Unlike the diesel, you have to have it at a higher RPM to have that power to push your product to, say, like canopy sprays and greater distance. So this particular unit, the Yanmar, is hooked up to some of the bigger hoses because it can handle greater volume. This particular unit has a few neat features. Right here they have an electrical panel here, which if you turn, it comes up with a panel. And this panel will give you everything from how many hours it's run. It's currently set now for your glow plug, and most diesel engines have glow plugs, so it's set for 9 seconds. Currently this has 2.7 hours of test time. It will give a tachometer, how fast it's going, what the temperature of the engine block may be. And it has a lot of good information once you get into the panel of how to maintain and program this for RPMs, when you need an oil change, when it's too hot. So this technological advantage here is very, very important for the end user to properly use this diesel engine. This here is the throttle. So when you do start your engine, is a throttle that you push and you go back and forth to increase the RPMs of the engine. Down here to the side, if you will see, you have two different canisters. This diesel engine, the back one here, the orange one in the rear, that's a water accumulator. It being that diesel engines won't take any water or that may be settled in there, it will separate it, go through the filter system, go through your pump here, and then go into your fuel filter, which allows you to have very clean, rich fuel. We'll talk about the Yanmar engine. Other parts of what we need to consider is the glow plug. The glow plug is very important in running your engines. The diesel engine, especially in temperatures, even like right now it's like 50 degrees, what it does, it heats up the engine so the combustion is much greater. Then if you don't use a glow plug, you can try to start the engine and it's like not getting any gas. You can flood it, and when it does start, it'll blow all kinds of smoke. So I'd highly recommend at lower temperatures is to use your glow plug. This is a throttle here that you go back and forth with to increase the RPMs of your engine. One of the other features with this engine is, of course, you have your muffler. Now your muffler goes down and it has protection on it. It goes through your deck and it comes down underneath. That basically allows the exhaust to be discharged below the deck, not inside the vehicle. This is an electric start, like I had mentioned. The maintenance on this is basically oil. You need to change your oil, and the monitor here will actually tell you when you do need to change the oil. It basically every season. or every 500 hours or so is to change your oil in the system. It's for you to, and your fuel filter. Those are the only two real things that you need to maintain on this unit. Otherwise, it's very, very self-efficient. It just lasts you many, many years. The other engine that we're going to talk about is your Vanguard. A totally different type of engine. This is a gasoline engine. It's 14 horsepower, and it's also electric start and pull. It has your throttle, and it has your fuel and your start, and it has a tachometer on it, which tells you how many hours that you used it. Again, this is very handy tachometer, similar to the Yanmar and their electrical panel. This will actually help you to remind you of how many hours you've used it, so you can maintain it with a spark plug and the air filter and the oil. We do highly recommend using a gasoline engine because of the ethanols in fuel. To use a high octane fuel, very high octane, 97. The preference would be is using an alternative fuel like True Fuel or Aspen. They're a little bit more costly, but in the long run, the longevity of this engine running for you and being dependable in the field is using a very high octane fuel. Unfortunately, you don't have to worry about that with the diesel. The gasoline is totally different. I'd highly recommend doing that. It'll save you a lot of maintenance on spark plugs and filters. You can even leave it in during the off season. It does nothing to your engine. It actually cleans your engine more efficiently than conventional ethanol fuels. Again, this is a 14 horsepower. This particular engine would be used for like smaller 3/8 hoses. You're going to get heights of, using a pump, you have very low RPMs, and use it with a smaller pump basically when you're not doing a large application a long distance. So the maintenance on this is the same. You have your filter and your spark plug, and that's all you really have to do with this. In this case here, we left the fuel tank. In some cases, we have a remote fuel tank that you can pull from. So that's basically your engines and a few two tips on maintaining. We thank you for joining us for another episode of How It Works.